We have today George Dimara, who is a West Papuan national, who is an activist and going to speak to us about the human rights crisis in West Papua. And then we also have Veronica Koman, and Veronica is a human rights lawyer. She's now with Amnesty International, and she's also an Indonesian national who has found herself in a spot of trouble, perhaps, on her exposing information and activism on the human rights crisis in West Papua as well.
I would like to open my short speech based on United Nations Universal Declaration for Human Rights, contain the every man and woman have a right to live freely in their habitat land, so they can practice their cultural identity, political ideology, religion, etc., without subordinated by any foreign nation. That is only beginning of that human rights declaration. But also Indonesian opening chapter for the Constitution of 1945, they mentioned that one, that colonialism must be abolished because that is against or abuse the human rights. Bahwa sesungguhnya kemerdekaan itu adalah hak segala bangsa, maka penjajahan di atas dunia ini harus dihapuskan sebab tidak sesuai dengan prinsip kemanusiaan dan keadilan. That's Indonesian language. During the process for the first President Sukarno who took over West Papua and request for $151 million from Soviet Union to gain the backup military equipment during the 1961 operation. After that, American backup Netherlands so that no fight. Successfully landing of Indonesian military on the Mandala operation, and then 1961 the land of West Papua been annexed to the Indonesian territory or archipelago of Nusantara. And then, rather than just finish off the Second World War, America pushed that the no more against the Indonesian with the military operation. Otherwise, bloc or the West and East will be fight again. So, unsuccessfully, our future independence been blown away, and then 1961 Indonesia beginning for annexed our homeland of West Papua, and the United Nations Temporary Administration been took part. On 1962, the New York Agreement, that this is the base of the international law, that legal framework between Indonesia, Republic of Indonesia and Kingdom of Netherlands. So until today, Indonesians said, no, you guys already chose for follow us on 1969. But this is 29th chapter of New York Agreement. Indonesia and Dutch, they never been give the chance for the people on the ground, the indigenous people, native people of West Papua should be exercised. All this New York Agreement, the article from 1 to 29, never been exercised by the native people of West Papua. So I told my country fellows that even today we fight against Indonesia in any kind of way. They got built up in military equipment and everything inside there. End of the story is we lost because the New York Agreement must be reviewed through to the United Nations international law. So that is the first legal system regarding, international law Indonesia using to continue to gain West Papua is part of Indonesia. So now we campaign. I just finished from Brisbane to follow the human rights activists to campaign around 6 military factory who created gun and sell it to Indonesia to kill the people right now in West Papua. So what we're going to do is I have to speak out more and more. Thank you so much for Veronica today with us. She's a wonderful woman, and hopefully she will continue to speak out. The right of West Papuan people will never end the struggle until West Papua independence. So at the moment, the people in West Papua, the United Nations, last night when I saw the story about the West Papuans, the Melanesian race going to disappear in their homeland because of intermarried assimilation. So that is political ideology from Indonesia to knock down, to be no more black people in West Papua, but mixed race, and maybe they forgot about the political ideology. Maybe they're going to be Indonesian in our homeland, attracting many men and women to marry again in the Indonesia way, in Java, because a lot of women in Java. I've been to Java a long time ago. So that is a political catastrophe we face it at the moment, because they're killing people inside the jungle in the central islands of West Papua, and then also they're doing another way, attracting men and women to be married to Indonesian men and women, so that our Melanesian race may disappear anytime. So we really are about all this ideology, political ideology of Indonesia. The ecosystem, flora and fauna in West Papua also facing dilemma to run away from their beautiful sanctuary and looking for another place to live, or because of illegal logging, mining, etc. On the sea, the fishermen from Indonesia, they came to West Papua. Maybe you know, when I was detained in Port Augusta in South Australia because of a visa, I've been a translator for the 700 Indonesian fishermen. I give them job. I told the detention immigration officer gave them job. They said, "You activists from West Papua." I said, I respect all these people. They got right. They are human. Not Indonesian government or Indonesian Britain. All this fish and other stuff there, no more fish, good fish in Indonesia or West Papuan water. Because thousands of fishermen looking for fish. Sometimes they're using homemade bomb to dynamite the fish and destroy beautiful coral reef. So if you go there before, beautiful coral reef with the colorful fish around that, similar like barrier reef, but at the moment, all those corals smash into pieces. So the side of, the big population of Indonesia, they now using West Papua as an objective land for make money and go back to their own. That's why, that's why at the moment the people of West Papua, they feel themselves like a refugee on my homeland. So when you look at the street, not much West Papuan people walk on the street on the market side. What they want to sell, the Indonesian people or women, they sell all the stuff as well. So they are in the state of, they have no way to go. That's why I spoke to my country fellow. We are in Australia at the moment. If we came, like came to us, Papua New Guinea on 1984, until today I never been there. back to my home country. So I spoke to Veronica that what you've been saying, maybe it's fresh information to the international community, because you've been experiencing all those stuff recently. You came across to Australia. But for me, sometimes I went to Papua New Guinea, spoke to the refugees there, encouraged them that one day we're going to be free. So it's a reality faced by the West Papuan people in West Papua is so unbelievable, because Indonesians continue to threatening them with the military presence on the ground. If they make something mistake, or the people around or living in the mining area or the places where the freedom fighters been active and fighting between them and the Indonesian military, it's very dangerous for any civilians walk across around the street during the night times. Today, on 24th, yesterday, that's Indonesian arresting some people in Sorong, about 24 people, men and women and children who go with their mother to the police station and still there. And one of them, one of the civilians, the man, been took away and disappeared, never come back. So this is the big issue we have to, especially my country fellow, like Benny Wenda and others, have to continue to speak out. So, because when we say that, Indonesia say like that. When we say the true Indonesia, always muck around. So, on this state, on the fact, Indonesia will never want to solve the issue of West Papua through to the negotiation table, because they have no way, no argumentation, no legal argumentation to tell the United Nations that West Papua wrong and we are right. They right and we wrong. They are wrong and we are right. But they always say no, and then they use their military power to continue to intimidate, torture, and killing, rape on the ground of West Papua until today. So I think I've a little bit finished from here, and then I give time for it. Maybe everyone or someone want to ask a question. After that, maybe Veronica can continue. So, in Australia, when I was in Brisbane, but when I was, my experience, I am the first West Papuan refugee who took government of John Howard to High Court in Canberra. And I won the case.
Yeah.
When I represented myself to the court, immigration said you have to write the letter to Amanda Winston to allow you to read the 1958 Migration Act of Australia. So you can write your submission by yourself. But praise the Lord, because 9 o'clock night when I took it from here to the detention center, that someone spoke to me like faraway place, but through to the telephone. Say, you don't worry because you will be released, but you have to be here for a little while. I'm a musician. When I arrived in Australia, in detention, Sunday morning, only 5 people attending church service. But when I play the music the next Sunday, 150 people turn up. So that is God's plan. So 43 people came across again with the canoe. No one go to the SBS or ABC for speak out about the right of Papuan refugees. I'm the one who give the SBS give me the accommodation, plane ticket. I've been there talking about the right of the West Papuan refugees just 100 kilometers from Australia, 150 kilometers from KPO. So West Papua, and then, sorry, last 1 week ago, we meeting with one of the local Green local member from Brisbane. We mentioning concern about the Lombok Treaty. I told him that one of the crocodile in Northern Territory bite someone day, only 5 minutes ABC television can expose the issue. What about 100 people of Australia, West Papuan being killed there, and no one exposed the issue, only through the Facebook? This is unbelievable. If you fret about Indonesia, give the gun for thousands of guns to West Papuan people, and they can fight with Indonesian army. So, I leave it like that. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Veronica Koman. I'm Indonesian human rights lawyer in exile here because of my West Papua work. My pronouns are she, her. I am a Chinese ethnic minority from Indonesia. I am not a West Papuan. And before I start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we are today, the people of Yidinji. And I'd like to pay respect to the elders past and present and acknowledge the ongoing racism, colonization, dispossession, and because this is the same story of West Papua basically. And so I'd like to start with Isaac's presentation earlier about media. So all of you here don't hear much about West Papua. It's because West Papua is one of the most restricted places on the earth, and this is like reflected by, recognized by many international NGOs and the UN. And so international journalists and organizations are practically banned from entering West Papua. And the condition of local journalists, they are all often being subjected to intimidation and attacks. And for the mainstream media based in Jakarta, the capital of Indonesia, are just very colonial and very lazy. They just copy-pasted the press release by Indonesian authorities when something happened in West Papua, if any. If even published at all. So that's the situation. That's why you are not hearing much at all. And it really works, right? It really works. It's really, we don't know what's happening there. And that's why it's been my own personal mission to raise awareness about what's actually happening in West Papua. Like in Indonesian education system, we are brainwashed on three main issues. The first one, that the history of Timor-Leste. Until today, most Indonesians will think that, look at the poor Timorese, they have become very poor since being separated from Indonesia. So second biggest history is the crimes against humanity against the communists back in 1965. One of the biggest killings in history. And the third one was Papua. So in our history book, we were taught, Indonesian children are taught that how heroic our founding fathers were liberating West Papuans from the Dutch. But apparently, after I hung out with West Papuans for a while, I found out that precise moment was deemed by most West Papuans as the beginning of colonization and invasion. So and that's why I am very, annoying for Indonesian because I have the other version. Because Kakak George already explained about the history, I'll just go briefly to emphasize the bit of history of why West Papua is also a fight for the land. So the land of Guinea, so I come from Sydney here, so I've been living on the land of Gadigal people of your nation, colonially known as Sydney. And so I come here from Sydney. It's from Cairns to West Papua is closer to from Cairns to Sydney. Can you imagine that? It's so close, yet we are hearing fuck all about West Papua. And it's so the land of New Guinea is divided by imperial line at that time when all the imperial wars divide territories. So become Papua New Guinea and West Papua. And West Papua is further divided by colonial lines by Indonesia to divide and conquer. And I will go into more detail later because there's currently just this year there has been a new settler colonialism project in building more lines in colonial lines in West Papua. So and yeah, about the brief history. So in 1961, West Papua already have their own national anthem, national flag, national parliament. 2 weeks later, the heroic Indonesia liberating, aka invaded West Papua. And in 1960, long story short, that 1962 there was an international agreement that later on Indonesia will oversee the plebiscite, one person, one vote. Well, it technically says one man, one vote, but I rephrase it, one person, one vote, at that time to be conducted later on. In 1967, Indonesia signed an agreement with the US Freeport will have a Grasberg mine, the largest gold mine in the world, in West Papua. In 1969, the plebiscite took place. So it was promised from the international treaty that one person, one vote. At that time, the population roughly 800,000 people, but the plebiscite only 1,026 people handpicked and under gunpoint to choose Indonesia. Of course, because 2 years before, Indonesia already promised the gold in West Papua to the US. And so this is why it's freaking hard to fight for West Papua, because we are also fighting the US. It's about imperial power in West Papua, and it's just Freeport. We are I can't I haven't even gone to the BP and like all the new colonial corporations operating in West Papua, and so yeah, that's why it's freaking hard. And yeah, it comes with military operations, and now I will go to the now, the second part and the last part of my speech today, the now. So initially Indonesia divided the land of West Papua into 2 provinces, and recently they added 3 more provinces. So during from the first division, the land into 2, in those 20 years, West Papuans have become minority in their own land. There was at that time by dictator Suharto, there was official settler colonialism project. Like people, Indonesians were put in West Papua, and then all the story. And recently it's been added 3 more, and so it will this new administration, new provinces, means new money will attract more migrants to come, more settlers to come. And in establishing new province, it means new police headquarters, it means new military headquarters, it means new government offices, which will attract more public servants for because classic impact of colonization that people are marginalized, and the low level, the deliberate level low of education when in Papua, you can think of any statistic, the worst will be in West Papua. The lowest rate of education, the highest rate of maternity deaths, and like the highest case of HIV/AIDS, and like name it. The worst will be, you will find it in West Papua. It's deliberate colonization, and where was I? And yeah, so yeah, it will. So the new settlers will marginalize West Papuans, like Kakak just mentioned earlier, where the small West Papuan mothers, small traders, they sell the classic betel nuts, and like for example the betel nuts or the cassava, and now these settlers with their capitals and more, I guess, business literate, they're also selling the same things. That was Kakak George was referring to. So like in all aspects, like if you go to West Papua, if you can, because it is technically, you know, if you're a foreigner, it's a no-go zone. And so once you arrive in West Papua in the airport, you will see that all those standing behind the desk at the airport are settlers. And when you go outside the airport, in the parking area or the porter, then you will see the indigenous Papuans. And yeah, so marginalized like that. And yeah, so well, besides by dividing the land into more provinces, it's classic divide and conquer, making the Papuan leaders, officials fighting each other for the new money. And also it's to make the licensing for all the plundering of resources even easier. And yeah, so, and now the worst currently there's worst humanitarian crisis in West Papua since dictator Suharto era is happening right now in West Papua. More than 60,000 people are displaced in the forest, and they are live in hunger, in cold, and those who stay near enough with the town are often harassed by Indonesian authorities because they are stigmatized as part of the freedom fighters. So yeah, they are. So the situation is so desperate that the local the more literate, I mean advocacy literate people among the displaced people have stopped counting their deaths, because they said that why do we need to make a documentation like nothing changed? Nothing changed. Why do we have to keep doing this? We don't have to anymore. So the last available data was from early last year. The deaths were already 421, and it happened since December 2018. Which the fresh military operation from Indonesia happened since December 2018. And I was thinking like, so because it was throughout 2 years, more than 400 people died, including most of them are children, like no one bat an eyelid, because it's like, you know, slowly. But let's say if it's like one single incident, like say Santa Cruz massacre in East Timor-Leste, then does it what it took? You know, does it what it needs to finally Australians to open your eyes and start speaking up about this? Does it what it takes? But you know, it's just the situation is very desperate. And I'll touch a little bit about how the situation in West Papua is. The West Papua National Liberation Army is one of the oldest national liberation armies in the world, and they are still continuing their fight until today, since the 1960s until now. And yeah, right now they are this fresh, the 2018 one that I mentioned, that this Liberation Army has become stronger than ever, more popular among West Papuan, and many of them are child soldiers. So the recent attack It was led, the commander was only 18 when he conducted the attack in 2018. And traditionally speaking, according to their custom, you cannot lead people older than you. So you can imagine, like, so many young people, and like right now, every now and then, the Liberation Army publish the photos or videos. I can always spot at least 2 children. And this is by no means to white standards, what international law is white instrument. According to white standards, like, oh, this, child soldiers are bad. Yes, I don't disagree with that, but it has to be put on context when you're looking at the situation in West Papua. Like this, so many of these new child soldiers are from the neglected, displaced people. They can't go anywhere. They can't go to school. If they try to cross the town, the soldiers will ask, are you part of freedom fighters? So they join the Liberation Army instead because they have nowhere to go. And they feel safer with the real Liberation Army. And so this is one of the situation. And the other situation is also like being a child of freedom fighters. If you go to school, the Indonesian soldiers will come to the school and keep harassing, asking where are your parents, like what are your parents doing, etc. And so it's very complicated. It's very complicated, and but yeah, it's really concerning because like the last time I checked the UN Secretary General report on the situation of child soldiers in the world, West Papua is not under their UN's radar yet. Well, thousands of them right now, I believe. And quickly about racism, it's so as a Chinese ethnic minority, I've been discriminated against all my whole life, but the racism towards West Papua in Indonesia is like another whole new level. So West Papuan students in Java are often it's very hard for them to find even accommodation to live because of their dark skin. And when they go to public transport, they are often like the Indonesians will move their seats and like pinching their nose and like very racist and even call them monkey. That's what triggered the 2019 West Papua uprising because Indonesian soldiers called them monkeys. And like in the recent mass arrest as well, unknown people left bananas in front of West Papuan students' dormitory. So that kind of dehumanizing racism. And the situation of freedom of expression, of course, very bad. That most of the time, West Papuans, when they take to the streets, they will get mass arrested. In Indonesia, when Indonesians take to the street in police brutality, that also happened because police have bastards everywhere. But you can see the layer of racism because when Indonesians protest, only few of them that's deemed as provocateurs are being arrested. But when it was Papuans, all of them got arrested. So I'm used to advocating for mass arrests like that because like just no West Papua you cannot speak at all. Just go down. And my last point is that I want to reiterate. I want to emphasize how West Papua is also a climate justice issue. It is the biggest rainforest in the Pacific right now, I believe. And through Indonesia's colonization, it's the highest rate of deforestation right now. And of course, like Aka just mentioned, illegal logging right now, like palm oil plantations, everything. So if you want to save the lungs of the world, we must save West Papua. Thank you.